Good morning. Today on the 11th of Av, let's dive in to the Chumash. We're on Tuesday, the third portion of the Eschanan, chapter number 4, Pasuk 41. Oz Yavdil Moshe Shalish Arim Be'ivra Yarden Mizracha Shamish. Moshe then decided to designate 3 cities on the side of the Jordan River that is towards the sunrise. He took it to heart. Let's look at Rashi. He took it to heart to be concerned about the matter. That is, if he should designate them, even though they would not afford refuge until those cities in Canaan had also been designated. So these cities that are Eivra Yarden will not be effective or in effect until the other cities that are in Canaan also become effect. But still, he was concerned with setting them up. Moshe said to himself, since an opportunity has arisen to fulfill a commandment that can be fulfilled, I will go ahead and fulfill it. Be'evra Yarden, on the side of the Jordan towards the sunrise, on the side that is to the east of the Jordan, towards the sunrise, since Mizracha is in the construct state, the Reish is vocalized with a Chataf, meaning the rising of the sun, the place from where the sun rises. In other words, the east side. So what are these cities? Let's continue in Pasuk 42. Lanos Shama, Reitseach, Asher Yitzrach Esrayehu B'Bli Das, so that a murderer might be able to flee there, provided that he murdered by mistake. He did not heed him. Mitmol, Mishloishim, from yesterday or the day before. V'nas el achas mina ha'arim ha'el v'chay. He's allowed to flee to one of these cities and live. They're cities of refuge for people who accidentally kill somebody else. As Betzer b'midbar, be'eretz hamishar l'Ruveni, Ves Romus Bagilad Lagadi, Ves Goylon Babashan Lamnashi. The city of Betzer, the desert, for the tribe of Reuven, Ramot in the Gilad region, to the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan of the tribe of Menashe. These are the instructions that Moshe said before the Jewish people. These are the Eidos, Chukim, and Mishpatim, 3 types of commandments. Asher Diber Moshe al Bnei Yisrael b'Teisim Mitzrayim, that Moshe told to the Jewish people when they went out of Egypt. Let's look at Rashi. These are the very same ones that he had told them when they left Egypt, and now he repeated to them in the plains of Moab. Be'evra Yarden, Bagaya, Mul Beis Ba'ar Be'eretz Sichon Melech HaMayir Asher Yeshev B'Cheshbon, Asher Hikar B'Yishev B'nei Yisrael B'Teisim B'Mitzrayim. On the east side of the Jordan River, in the valley opposite Beis Ba'ar, in the land of Sichon, who's the king of the Amori, of the Amorites, who was dwelling in Cheshbon, who Moses and the Yidden destroyed after they went out of Egypt. Vayirshus Artse, and they took possession of his land. Ves Eretz Oig Melech Bashan, in the land of Oig, the king of Bashan. Shnei Malchei Amori, these are the 2 kingdoms or kings of the Amori, of the Amorites. Asher be'Evra Yarden Mizrach HaShemesh, that are on the side of the Jordan River towards the sunrise, the east side. Me'arei, Asher al Spas Nachal Arnon Vad Har Sion Hu Chemron, from Eror, which is on the edge of Arnon, on the edge of the Arnon Gorge, to Mount Sion, which is Mount Harmon. V'chol ha'Ever, v'chol ha'Arava, Ever Yarden Mizracha Ad Yam Arava Tachas Ashtos Hapiska, the entire plain across the Jordan River eastward, as far as the sea of the plain, and from the foot of the waterfalls, descending from the peak of Mount Nebo. Very short Chumash. Let's move on to the Tanya. Tanya, we're continuing in number 4 of Igeres HaKodesh. So yesterday we talked about how to, in order to achieve redemption, kind of, or a sliver of redemption that we have during prayer, there you have to do like a bris. You got to cut away 2 things: the membrane, or actually first the foreskin and the membrane. And one of them, the foreskin, you're able to do by yourself, but the membrane, you actually need Hashem's help in order to really get past it, get through it. Okay, let's continue. And so during davening is a time when you are able to get through it all. It's possible to get through it all, to cut through all of the blockage. Moidas zois ki isarusa de leila hi bisirusa de lasata davka. It is well known that an arousal from above, right? We said we need God's help in order to do that membrane. But it's well known that in order to get God's help, that actually comes from an arousal. You got to do something down here that triggers the Isrusa de Lasata that God can do. Isrusa de La'ela that God can do. A man's soul is stimulated from above only in response to the spiritual service that he initiates here below. Even an effusion of divine benevolence that comes exclusively from above and can neither be brought into being nor drawn down by man's service alone also awaits a previous arousal from below. So even things like, for example, let's say the membrane, removal of the membrane, which we said was a higher level that can only be done from above. Even that needs Isarusa de Lasata. It needs a little push, a little something from below. B'chinas ha'alas mayin nukvin, as an elevation of mayin nukvin, by an arousal of feminine waters, by which the recipient elicits the mayin dechurin, the downward flow, the masculine waters emanating from the giver. You need a little bit from the receiver in order to get the giver, God, to open the floodgates. As the sages say, no drop of rain descends from above without 2 corresponding drops first ascending from below. That's why we need to first do the milah. We need to first do a type of circumcision of removing of the foreskin. Lahasser arlas halev, to remove the foreskin of the heart, uklipas agasa v'daka, the foreskin of the heart, and the coarse and thin husks, hamalbishais, al b'chinas nekudas pnimis halev, which cover the pnimis halev, which cover the innermost of our hearts. We definitely need to take away first the foreskin, the blockage, the outer blockage. Shehi b'chinas avas Hashem. This is referring, what is the pnimius halev? This is the thing of avas Hashem. B'chinas leman chayecha, for the sake of your life. Shehi b'galus b'tavis olam haza, which is unfortunately in galus, in exile, by the tivus of this world. These physical desires are also for the sake of your life. These are 2 counterparts, as was mentioned above. Let's read the note. It is thus possible for an individual to be so dedicated to his passions and desires that they are his entire life. For just as this state exists in holiness, it is also as its counterpart in the opposite direction, whereby one is immersed in desires to the innermost core of his heart and being. So you can be really engrossed in taivas, Olam Haza, and not be able to realize that you need to do the milah, the bris milah. You have to remove that blockage. V'hainu, how do you? What is this thing? V'hainu, what is this thing that you could do that will arouse your isrusa de lasata, your down here doing something that's going to arouse this rusa de la'ela, the help from above, to, let's say, take away that membrane. This is done by giving tzedakah to Hashem from one's money, because this is shehu chayusay. This is your vitality. This is what people live for. And if you're going to go and give some of that hard-worked, hard-lived for money, that's a way that you can arouse God's to do his part. Let's read this note. It has been noted earlier in chapter 1, in part 1, chapter 37, that since money enables a man to purchase life's essentials, parting with it in favor of charitable ends is equated to giving his very vitality to God. Somebody who's actually limited in his finances and is hard pressed at the time, which he's really giving of his life source, like really when he gives tzedakah. And this is especially so if he supports himself by the toil of his hands. You worked hard for that money with your hands. You put your life into getting those funds, and now you're going to give them to Hashem. This is the boost that will get Hashem to give to you back. It's impossible, and in his work, he didn't many times. It's impossible when somebody works really hard that he didn't put his whole pnimius haleb, the innermost parts of his heart, into it. As is the way of the world when people are in business. When he disturbs, now that he disperses the fruits of his toil, and he gives to Hashem with simcha and a betuv levav and a gladsome heart, he redeems his soul from the pit. This is, he redeems the innermost of his heart, which was in galus and captivity, within the klipa, whether it be big or small, or coarse or more refined. Mikol mishmar noitzer libecha. This is what it's written. Guard your heart with the greatest vigilance. Mishmar, perish beis ha'asurim. Mishmar means a prison. The verse is thus exhorting us to guard our hearts from being imprisoned and exiled in klipa and desires. Va'ata, now, or nifte ma'achitzenius b'tzedakah. Now you will be able to be paida, you'll be able to redeem yourself with this charity. V'zegam kain lashon priya. Remember we said there's the removal of a debt. tabed lachitzonius shemoshle by al nekudis pnimis levavai. This is what it means by the word priya, that you can remove a debt for the individual in question had become indebted and subjected to the forces of evil that had ruled within him over the innermost point of his heart. This is what it means that you're going to be redeemed, because you become slaves or you become indebted in a way that you can't really get yourself out. Tzedakah is the way that one can pull himself out. Through giving tzedakah, that's how we redeem ourselves. And as we're going to explain, that by giving tzedakah, we're able to start that process. And that's especially why we give tzedakah during davening, right? Because what did we just say? Davening is a time when we're able to remove this blockage. Whether the more outer blockage of the orla, or the more subtle blockage of the membrane, which we need Hashem's help for. Davening, we said, was a time when we're able to do this, and therefore davening is before we daven is when we give tzedakah in order to get ourselves into that space and give us a fighting chance to be able to remove the blockage on the pnimius halev, on the innermost part of our heart. The Tehillim for today are chapters 55 to 59. Hayom Yom. Oh, this is yesterday's Hayom Yom. Let's go to today's Hayom Yom. The Alter Rebbe went to Mezrich with his brother Rabbi Yehuda Leib in the year 5524, or in English it was 1764. Rabbi Yehuda Leib went without permission from his wife and therefore turned back. The Rebbe came to Mezrich and stayed there that first time until the Pesach of 1765. 1765. For 2 weeks, he was uncertain whether to remain there. The first mimer he heard was Nachamu Nachamu. It is not clear, though, whether this was the first mimer after his arrival or the first after the 2 weeks when he had decided to remain and had become bound to the Magid. So he went with his brother, but then his brother went back, and the rest is history. The Alter Rebbe became a student of the Magid of Mezrich, and yeah, it was once again a pleasure learning with you. Be'ezrat Hashem, I shall see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock.